This episode includes a conversation about mental health and eating disorders, explored through the lens of parenting and children's literature. While our discussion remains general, we know these topics can touch on personal or lived experience and may be difficult for some listeners. Please take care when watching or listening. If you or someone you know is impacted by a mental health issue, support is available. We've included some helpful resources in the show notes. A resource guide is also provided in the book. Hello and welcome back to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about the recently released books. Welcome back. Again, this is Ray Walters. Today's featured book takes readers beneath the surface, literally and emotionally, into a colorful underwater world where a family begins to face something difficult together. At first glance, this is a bright and imaginative children's book filled with fish, rhymes, and playful illustrations. But underneath that gentle storytelling is a serious and important conversation about mental health, eating disorders, fear, family support, and the courage to ask for help. The story introduces children to the idea that someone they love may be struggling inside, even when that struggle is hard to see or explain. Through the character of Ed, the book gives young readers a simple way to understand an eating disorder without making the subject too frightening or too clinical. It also reminds families that love, honesty, coping skills, and professional help all matter when facing something this serious. This is not a book that tries to solve everything in a few pages. Instead, it opens the door for safer conversations between children and the adults who care for them. It offers hope, but it does so with tenderness and responsibility. Here to talk about There Is Something Fishy About Ed, a gentle introduction to mental health and eating disorders, is its author, Monique Stokvis. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Ray. Thanks for having me.
Monique, congratulations. Welcome to the show, by the way, and congratulations in getting this book published. How has it been since the book got out?
Ray, it's been such a wonderful journey. It's taught me so much. I've learned patience through impatience, and but it's been wonderful. It's been a learning lesson. I've even learned a lot, so
Mm,
it's been good.
all right. Well, Monique, I'm not because this for me is a very interesting conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm going to jump right into my first question. And
Sure.
uh, for viewers and listeners who are tuned in right now, who are looking at the book for the first time, how would you describe There Is Something Fishy About Ed and the conversation you hope it opens in families?
Well, first of all, the conversation about Ed, let's break down what Ed is to begin with. It's an acronym for
Yes.
eating disorder. First letter from E, second letter from D, and it's right in the book, as a matter of fact. What I would tell families to start with, just read the book. It's a wonderful story about a
It is.
family of fish that encounters a problem, and the kids have to learn that, wait a minute here, we can cope through this. So slowly the children learn to cope through their mother's illness, and everybody wins at the end of the day. So it's that. And opening up a conversation, like I said, just read the book. Start out by that. Even without your child, read the book.
Monique, let me squeeze this one in. I've already noticed this because I went through your book, and it was very creative of you and catchy of you to use the name Ed. How did you get that idea of using Ed like short for eating disorder?
I went to an eating disorder rehab 12 years ago, and I started writing because I'm not sure if you're aware of rehab type things. We did lots of writing and arts and that kind of stuff. And I
Mm,
started writing, and I started writing, and I started writing. And then I ended up with, wait a minute, because in the military, I served 25 years in the Air Force, and the
mm.
Air Force is unbelievable for acronyms. So I immediately saw the Ed, and I was like, I'm just going to call him Ed. And then I realized that's not right to call him Ed. So you'll see reference always to it, Ed.
There you go. Um, you chose to approach eating disorders through a children's picture book. What made that format feel like the right way to tell this story?
Ray, when I had an eating disorder, my children were very young and they were affected by this eating disorder.
Mm,
So it was written as a startup for them, it's a book I wish I would have had that I could have read with my children. And I then think I would have been able to open that conversation with my children.
mm, mm,
I see so many empty plates at Christmas, so many empty plates that my
mm,
children saw. It's not fair. I'm going to tell you a story. My daughter was at her friend's house for a sleepover once when she was 7, and the mom came and sat down at dinner with the child. And
mm,
my daughter freaked out. She didn't understand it. Like, why is a mom sitting down with us to eat?
mm,
And she told me this story, and that's when I realized, oh my God, this is affecting them in way more words than what I had thought. So I figured if I could only teach the words to the children and the safety of the children, then there's nothing to be scared about.
mm. True.
And I mean, nobody asks for an eating disorder, nobody.
Yes.
But if you have one, there are ways to cope with it, and that's the message. But it's no different than any other problem. If a child has a problem within a family, they go to words, they go to their books and say, Mommy, that's just like you, or
Mm,
Daddy, that's
mm,
just like you. So
mm,
that kids can start to see the patterns, and not just children, adults. I had one lady come up to me, Ray. I
mm,
had just shared that my book was published. She came up to me and she said, Can I talk to you for a minute? And I was like, Absolutely, you can. And she said, Will you let me know when your book's out? And I said, Sure, I will. She goes,
mm,
You're the second person I've ever told. And I went like this, not even knowing at the time that it was going to affect adults to that
mm,
degree,
mm, mm,
but it was
mm,
also my realization that this isn't just a book for children. This is a book for anybody who's struggling with anything. It's good for any family. You don't even have to struggle. Here's another incident, Ray, that what would you rather have your child do? Would you rather have your children be called names or calling names on the school ground? Or would you rather educate your children, so there's no call outs at the school ground? Eating disorders happen. Children know about them.
mm,
Children know, they sense the fear, but don't
mm,
have the words. So this book was an apology to my children, actually. And so and so it went. So that's how we've gone full circle.
I see. Monique, the underwater setting gives the book a playful and imaginative feeling, even while it deals with something very serious. Why did you choose fish and the ocean as the world for this amazing story?
Well, for starters, fish, I didn't know that they had wonderful little personalities that attached to them, that they can change color and shape, some of them. So I individually selected what fish were going to go into the book because
Ah, okay.
every single fish represents something within my life.
I
Um,
see.
At the very end of the book, there's a windmill. I'm Dutch. I was born in Canada, but my parents were Dutch at the time of my birth. So the whole book is is the my story. Now, why did I pick fish characters? I thought, what a better contrast to have such a heavy subject and use a being that's almost weightless in water. So I thought it would be a nice little, push and pull, and that too gets people talking.
Mhm. Yeah, it gives that playful, imaginative feeling, and it still tackles the subject, but gives it a lighter um, setting. It's easier to go through. Yeah.
And also, Ray, attached right within the book is a fun little fish count
Mhm.
for children who can't quite take on these emotions or they don't understand. They can just look at the book and count fish, and that's why it's there. And for example, page 19, I've got uh, the mom is finally facing Ed, and there happen to be three frownfish there. Well, there's
Mhm.
three family members in that family, and frownfish are known to be sad because of their sad faces.
Mhm.
So I picked three frownfish to go with the mom because there's three members of that family, and they're very sad at that very moment. And that's just showing in that circle how much it affects every member of the family. It's not just the mom who has the eating disorder, the family has the eating disorder.
Okay. That's very interesting. Monique, I know I've squeezed this one in because I find you naming uh, the character Ed to stand for eating disorder, but I wanted to talk about this on a different light, from the lens of a child. And we know that the title uses Ed as a way to name that disorder. Why was it important to give the struggle a name children actually understand?
Because again, when children don't understand things, they try and correlate it with something in their world that could make a difference. So to a child to read this book, it just opens up a wealth of information. For example, if you go at the end to the coping skills at the end, a
Mm,
child could go, I didn't even know I could put my fingers in cold water and take away the internal pain that's going on.
mm,
Those are
mm,
all coping mechanisms.
mm.
From the very start, though, Ray, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the title itself is in capital letters, except for Ed. Now, I used capital letters on purpose because it needed a wide lens and it's a big subject. But I also used Ed in lower caps because he doesn't get the control. He doesn't get the capitalization. He gets to be an it. So I left it as a little Ed. He has no importance, although he has lots in the story.
All right, I want to ask you this next question because um, children may not have adult vocabulary, but they often notice tension, sadness, fear, or withdrawal. I can remember some of these things when I was little, or these feelings rather. So in the story, the children notice that something is wrong before they fully understand what it is. Why is it important to show that children often sense emotional changes in the adults around them?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think children learn their parents' behavior so that if there's something stressful, they'll know that a parent's going to tense up. And
Yeah.
that gives them
Yeah.
the cue, right?
Mm, mm,
So, again, if you start talking about these two things with one another, it opens up a lovely vocabulary. And that's what we want. We want children to name their feelings. And being dull and gray, you also can pick colors for feelings.
yeah. True. True.
So, I mean, today I have a very pink and yellow day. It's yellow I'm wearing on purpose because it's hope for the book.
Mm,
And purple is the other color for eating disorders because it's a hopeful color. Now, at the beginning of the book, it
mm,
starts out quite dark. And by the
yes.
end of the book, throughout the book, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. as do the fish colors. And that
Mm-hmm.
is all to just show that, through dialogue, even reading a book, you can do things. You can, you can, guess what? Mom might understand if you use that word.
Yeah.
Mom, I just heard, Mommy, what does that mean, eating disorder? What does it really mean? Well, guess what? You can go to the back and you find out what is an eating disorder throughout all the coping mechanisms and finding the fun personalities of the fish too. That too is important for children. They can then associate fish with feelings, and then all of a sudden fish becomes more important to them, and they can relate in a better fashion.
I see. All right. What I also noticed, Monique, is that the mother in the story does not pretend everything is fine. Uh, she speaks honestly about, but gently. How can adults find that in talking with children about mental health?
You start very slowly, for starters. You don't introduce mental health on a huge scale. So
Mm,
at the beginning, I would just read the book. It's because it really, if you took the word eating disorder and just, like I said earlier, just swapped it out to something else, the
mm,
book still applies. Everything applies. It's just not eating disorders. It can be anything. And if you're having trouble, if your child has been maybe a little bit withdrawn or something,
yeah.
maybe by expressing it through fish and colors, maybe children can start to see a little bit of hope themselves. And then it gives them that attachment. So it changes their sadness
Mm,
to understanding and into gladness.
that makes sense. Um, the children respond with, love, concern, and a desire to help. What do you hope young readers learn from the way they support their mothers?
Well, I hope they learn that they are not the reason for their mothers, that they don't take it upon themselves. It
Yeah.
is their mother's responsibility to get better, not the children.
Mm, mm.
It's simply it's there so that if something does happen, you can cope.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Um, I also noticed that the book includes coping activities, and I like that, such as counting. You mentioned this earlier, music, movement, reading, creativity, and connection. You went through this yourself.
Walking outside.
Yeah. So why did you want to include practical coping tools in the story?
Well, if you were to say to a 7-year-old, "Oh, use your coping skills," they'd go, "I have no idea what you mean." If you give them a list of things like, guess what, you can go for a walk, or we'll go fishing, or we'll jump in the boat, or we'll go for whichever you want to do.
Yeah.
These are all things that get your mind out of continuously thinking about eating disorders and the way it is for children, right? Because we don't
Mm-hmm.
want children to come away saying, "Mom, you have an eating disorder." We want children to come away to say, "Mom, are we safe enough to talk about this?" Or vice versa. If mom bought the book because she knows she has a problem, then it's the reverse as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important. These messages are very important.
They indeed are. There is a hopeful movement in the story toward getting help, including medical support and therapy. Why was it important to show help seeking as a brave step?
Because it's the first, once you admit you have a problem, you can do something about it. If you don't admit you have a problem or keep pretending that you don't have a problem, then it's never going to get resolved. And that's general in life. And guess what? If the children get to see their parents through the book, all of a sudden, hey, let's go for a walk. Children start to relate to that, and then they've connected it to the fish again. So again, it's gone full circle.
Right. Monique, I notice um, going through your book, I noticed that your book is gentle, but I also noticed that it does not minimize the seriousness of eating disorders. So my question is, how did you work to keep a story age appropriate while still respecting the weight of the topic?
Because I think within the book, the children have most of the control. If you read the book to a child, they're going to go, guess what? I can cope with this, or this fish is smiling at me, or there's three hornfish here for a reason, or so there's so many valuable takes in that. So uh, that's how I kept it age appropriate, is through a gradual process. And like I said, it was my life story. So, when I've been dealing over 50 years with an eating disorder, and uh, it's important. It's important for the children, and it's important. It was important to me, Ray. It was
Yes.
important. At the end of the day, as I started writing for children in general. Then I realized, wait a minute, I'm writing for my children. And then at the end of the day, I realized I'm writing for me. It was for me first, then my children, because within that too, I had to forgive myself because there's a lot of guilt that goes along with an eating disorder because it's so hush hush. There's, it's eating, it's eating. And how you ask the seriousness, there's a one-page statement in the book that says, if you or a loved one is struggling with an eating disorder,
Yes.
it is imperative that you seek emergent medical help. This is a book that helps, but you must see a doctor.
Medical. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Monique. You also mentioned this. You have just mentioned it. You have personal experience with eating disorder struggles, and you also uh, studied psychology and eating disorders. How did your personal and educational background shape the way you wrote this book? I know you've mentioned this in small details. I want to know, how did your personal and educational background shape the way you wrote this book? You mentioned that you also wrote it for yourself. So take us through that, please.
So, going to university and specifically studying eating disorders gave me a lens I think that a lot of people don't have. First of all, with the psychology background and sociology, and then uh, the educational aspect of actually taking the eating disorders course. So,
Mm,
I come with lots of experience and it has shaped everything in my world. It allowed my education allowed me to think of things like coping mechanisms. It allowed me to think of things like, well, what about children who, like, let's say mom's reading to a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, then what? Then that's why, because of my psychology background, I realized, well, I need something for the small children, and hence came in the fish count, the dark to the lightness. That too was to give, and that I learned through education that, darker colors have darker moods, lighter colors have lighter moods. And that's basically through education. That's how I came up with the concept of the book, but through life experiences where I came through the actuality of the book.
Monique, before we go ahead and close this interesting conversation, I just want to ask you to invite our viewers and listeners to grab a copy of your book. And for those interested ones who are tuned in right now, where can they actually get a copy of it?
Well, first of all, you can get it on Archway. You can get it on Barnes and Noble, as well as Chapters, Indigo here in Canada, as well as a local bookstore here, as well as I have a website, moniquestokvis.ca, and it's very easy to buy from that website.
All right. We will make sure that all those information can be accessed on the description box on both our podcast channel and our YouTube channel. All right. Last question, Monique. if a parent or caregiver reads this book and realizes that a difficult conversation needs to happen in their own home, what would you challenge them to do first? And what should they be careful not to do?
First of all, just read the book. You just read the book. Don't even delve into anything there. Just read the book as a story. Find safety within the book. From there, read it to your child. Because you must read it to yourself first. You have to, because you don't know how that's going to resonate with your child. You know your child. And if you can admit that you have a problem and you need help, the first thing I'd say is seek medical help right after you read the book.
Monique, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for sharing your book with us and for helping open such an important conversation with care and compassion.
Can I just leave you with just two statistics, Ray?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Sure. So I just wanted to share that every 52 minutes in the United States, somebody dies from an eating disorder. That's pretty serious. 32% of our children in Canada, ages 7 to 12, have an eating disorder. It's happening in our schoolyards. Read the book.
Monique, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your expertise. Thank you for your book. Seriously, thank you for your book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ray, for having me.
The
It's so
pleasure is mine.
appreciated.
The pleasure is mine, Monique. I
Okay.
also want to give a big shout out to our awesome viewers and listeners for joining us for this interview. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations on the Author Roundup. I'm Ray Walters. Join me next time as we explore the world of supported self publishing, one indie author at a time.